Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. They said, say Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah. I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, say Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah. I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. Frozen, neck is frozen, catch me rolling.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection. I'm Nick Rudman, joined as always by Andrew Mize. We have an absolutely outstanding show for you. It's time for our second interview special segment. But before we get into that, first, please like, comment, subscribe below. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you listen and watch the podcast, we really appreciate you liking, commenting, subscribe. It means a lot to us. But now we got a chance to move on. Mize, we have a great show today.
That's right, Nick. And we have a very, very special guest, a world-renowned strength and conditioning expert. Actually, it's my uncle as well, so that can go into play. He's trained the likes of Allen Iverson, Alonzo Mourning, Pat Ewing, tons of other lower-level athletes. He's had the full gambit of anywhere from basketball to football, NBA to NFL. My uncle Kevin Maselka is going to join us today, and that's a great interview. So let's hop into that interview right now. Nick, we are back with our second all-time guest, a big honor for us to have another guest on the show because our first guest was such a hit. We have someone very near and dear to my heart, my uncle Kevin Maselka, strength and conditioning expert, all-around master of the craft, and anything that you want to do to sharpen your body, make it a lethal weapon, so to speak, Kevin can help you out. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, I've been in the business. Reality is like 45 plus years and trained over 350,000 hours of human sessions. A lot of people that have been in the business as long as I am, they want to write books and teach and, not train people and be in the trenches. That's where I love to be, and always elevating humans and take them to the next level. So we have a lot of great story. Got the Heat hat on tonight because Ömer Yurtseven, Turkish center from Georgetown. He's a great success for us because he was undrafted and now he's playing for Pat Riley. He's down there with the Heat as their true 7-foot center, which, guys always say, yeah, I'm 7 foot. And then they look at him and say, nah, you're not 7. You're like 6'10". You're 6'9". And he is a true 7-footer. And, so many people doubted him last year, and he worked with me for 9 months through the pandemic. And agents and coaches and even David Falk, who I work closely with, thought this kid needs to learn how to play. Well, Pat Riley and Kevin Maselka believed in him, and he's a full, roster spot with the Heat, and they're playing Pacers tonight. So had to wear one of these vintage Heat hats from back in the Alonzo Mourning days down in the Heat, way back in the late 90s.
I remember a fun story, or something that I always remember. I don't know if you remember this or not, but when I was younger, we went to one of the gyms that you were working at the time, and Pat Ewing was there, and he was doing leg press, and to me, maybe I was like 10, it looked like 50,000 pounds that he was leg pressing. And I clearly remember when I was leaving, he was outside and he said goodbye to me, and I could see his head and neck over the top of his Suburban. He was that tall. Right. So that was something I always remembered that I thought was pretty funny. But,
well, Pat and Alonzo Dikembe were my gym up there in Rockville, Maryland. Those guys were, an entity there daily. I mean, it was breakfast early in the morning. And then, Patrick was the most disciplined with getting up at 7. We'd meet at this diner and have a stack of pancakes and orange juice. He was all carbohydrate guy. He barely had protein. But, at that time, his metabolism supported it. And in current times, not so much.
Yeah.
But, he's gaining a little more weight and loves his carbs. But he would get into the gym and lift. And then we go to track and run. I'd come back in and Kembe would come. and we would lift, and then we'd go to our track work, and then Zoe would come in late, and he'd come in at like 2 or 3 o'clock, and scrimmages at Georgetown started at 4, and he'd come in late, 3:30 sometimes. We'd lift till 5:30, and then we'd go to Georgetown, and he'd always piss everybody off because he was late, and he said, no, play another one. They're unlacing. So he'd keep there till 7, and then we'd go for steak dinners at the Palm in Georgetown, because you could go in shorts and sweaty and have a big steak dinner. So these guys went hard, and they went hard Monday through Friday, all out, took the weekends off all summer long, never took more than 1 or 2 weeks off after the season. So kind of the old school, the old guard way of training and going,
Well, one thing me and Nick have been talking about lately is that nowadays it seems many players, specifically this is an NFL-based podcast, but all professional players really, they've kind of been moving away from the traditional strength and conditioning team coach, and they've all been branching out, especially during the off season, and going to the private coaching sector, getting private coaches. Do you think this is like the future? Is this a strong move for players to do that?
Well, it was even that way back in the day. Like Michael had his trainer, Tim Grover, and, we used to say, oh, yeah, you're the Kevin Maselka of Chicago in the Midwest, dude, and we're both training, Pat and Zoe and Dikembe had me, and then, Pippen and Jordan had Tim Grover. And so that's way back, and, late 90s, mid 90s on through, now. But you gotta consider this is like back in the day, there was someone in there training, and the Miami Heat, Bill Ferran was their strength coach. Now his son is the strength coach there. And I said, wow, it's great. Can't remember the guy's name. I said, this player's training with Bill. That's awesome. He goes, yeah, it's Bill. I said, no, that's great. He's getting ready for the season to back you up. He was like a, low tier backup center. He says, well, he's with Bill. That's why I have you, because Bill's focused on the whole team and dealing with coaches and organization, whereas as an individual trainer can put 100% of their focus on that player and have single-mindedness. And so their brain is always working on a player versus general team workouts. We even see this now with, Omer down at the Heat and other players I work with. They get there with the team and they say, man, it isn't the same as how we train. So you take that in consideration. You say, well, when we train is usually off season. We're not always during the season. And I'm optimizing, building, progressing during the season, during the off season. In season, they're dealing with coaches like really Pat Riley runs things down there, Spo's there, but they're both running things. So you can't bring an athlete into a court session destroyed from strength program, destroyed from conditioning and whatever else you do. They're just kind of maintaining so that the coaches get optimal effort on the court, because it's really about basketball then. They don't care about what you're doing, with their physicality, just that they're ready to have injury prevention. They're keeping them kind of tuned up and in recovery. And that's like a key point. And I'll talk about that later, is that training hard is great, but you want to make sure there's brevity in guys who are in recovery so that make gains off the training, which is a stimulus. Absolutely. So in season, it's different. So these individual trainers are very important, because if you spend year after year with a guy, you make great strides. Like Omer Yurtseven was a great example, because we had from March 2020 all the way through to January of 21. And then he went off and did some, they did Summer League down in the bubble. And then they had, actually Summer League wasn't bubble, it wasn't Vegas, but they had the Developmental League, G League in a bubble. And then they had a Summer League, and he killed it in just 2 games. And they had to sign him. Everyone was clamoring for it. He destroyed everyone in Summer League in just 2 games and got himself a 1-on-1 deal. So he did great. But the point of it is, we had like 10 months to train a guy. Usually we have 6 to 8 weeks, where they come in out of college, they're in recovery, and we get them ready for NBA tryouts and they're off. We don't have much total development time. But this guy had so much work with him, made fantastic strides, and it proved positive for him.
Do you ever get any pushback or have any issues aligning what you try and do with the strength and conditioning staffs on these programs? I mean, do you ever, I don't want to say butt heads, but ever have any disagreements about ways to treat and train certain athletes?
You know, this is where a lot of trainers, you know, they have great knowledge. And the one thing I teach new trainers to go out and learn is salesmanship. You know, I got all the training science in the world, but no one really cares what you know till they know how much you care. And that comes in the conveyance of some salesmanship and some emotion and connecting with a person. So that's just like you go into any sell any deal, you connect with a person, you build rapport, and then they start to listen to you versus, you know, I know all the training, I know all the techniques. So a good example is at Ohio State, I went in to train Evan Turner, who's player of the year. And John Wall was going to be the first pick, and Evan were trying to get him maybe first, second pick. And it isn't always going with the first pick, like David Falk represented Evan Turner. And so he sent me to Ohio State. So I go to Ohio State, and it's a funny story about pushback from a trainer. And I meet Thad Matta, and he's like, oh, hey, you're here, you know, to see Evan. That's great. There's the strength coach in there, and there's his room, and there's this huge guy. Most strength coaches in NBA, NFL, they come from football. I didn't, but you got to contend with, there's some ego and it's their territory. So I always come in and, you know, I talked to the strength coach there and I said, oh, hey, Thad said we could come in. I'm with Evan. I'm just here with the agent and you've done a great job with the guy. So I compliment. I said, I'm just here to make sure everything checks out, report back to the agent. When in actuality, I'm in there to totally revamp what they've done because I'm not into these multiple sets and pyramids and heavy volume of training. I'm super brief and more intense than a person's ever seen before. So we accentuate the athlete and optimize their athletic skills and their shooting and their finesse and their touch. So I have to go in there and be like, all right, later on, you're going to be like, what the heck is this guy doing? And the athlete, as Evan Turner said, man, you saved my life. He goes, my back was hurting me. He goes, I hated that chart on the wall. It was like 16 sets to 3 reps. And they were killing us heavy weight all the time. I hurt my back. Jared Sullivan hurt his back. Not because of that program, but it was just powerlifting, heavy weight, you know, big volume. And so when we go to our program, I build rapport with those people and like kind of take a lower angle of advantage and say, I'm just here to check things out and build rapport, and then bam, come in with my program. The athlete loves it, and they're off to the next level. Well, usually in colleges, the strength coaches, they do not have much time to focus on individual optimization. It's all team and general fitness, and they do their job. They do a great job at that level. I just take it past that.
You kind of just touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to combine two things that we were going to ask you about. You've been around a lot of top-tier athletes, like really cream of the crop guys, but I'm sure you've had some guys that really, they were right there, they're at the bubble, and they didn't quite make it. What is the factor or some of the factors that separate somebody who does make it, the Patrick Ewings, the Alonzo Mournings of the world, and someone who doesn't make it, maybe they're backups, or someone who doesn't even make the league? What are some things that separate them?
Right. Well, you know, you get different body types and styles. So you get the 7-footers, especially when they focus on the center position, the NBA a little bit more. It was a pinnacle part of that offense and, you know, rebounding. It's still essential because we don't make 100% of our threes. The game has shifted a little bit. But the difference is no matter what the body size, let's go to Steph Curry, okay, versus Giannis, okay. The start is belief in one's self, that they are like it, okay? And that belief is impenetrable. The belief is congruent with the way they use their physiology. It's undoubting, all-knowing that they are an NBA player. And that's one of my first lessons. They come in and I'll say, tell me, like, your goal. Oh, yeah, okay, here's my goal. No, I want you to say your goal with some believability. Yeah, I'm going to play in the NBA. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to say it convincingly. So not that I just believe it, but you believe it. I don't care what you impress me or don't impress me with. I'm going to hear how you say that you impressed yourself about it and you believe. Like, say it believably. So these players that they're at that level, they believe in themselves, they trust themselves, and then they back it up with an unbelievable amount of focused, hard work. And that starts with finding a team like guys like me, a shooting, coach, nutrition, all these facets of being great. But on top of that, there's unwavering mental state. Like, look at Curry. He's not so huge. He's got a brother, same genetics. So you say, well, it's genetics. Nah, that's it. The head and the heart and the hands. A lot of guys have the hands, which is your genetics, but that heart is that belief in you, and then the head to put it all together and be smart enough and be on that level all the time. And that's the difference. We'll get kids in that are playing, like we got Miles Studi plays at Vanderbilt with Stackhouse, who's one of our guys from way back, Jerry. And Miles Studi, and I got another kid who's playing at a JUCO, same athleticism, 6'5", 40-inch verticals. But Miles came in for 400 workouts over 5 years when he was in high school. And the other kid, I said, you see where you are? You had 40 workouts, like Kamari Williams, Walt Williams' son. I see him, and I'm like, what's with you, Kamari? What's going on, man? You get in the gym. Miles been here for 400 workouts. Look at his physique. Look at you. He's very skinny. I always give him Kamari a hard time, so I try to cajole him along. And I'm like, you did like 40 workouts. He did 400. See the difference? But maybe you don't want it. That's okay, Kamari. You're not the wizard. You're not your dad. So it's that hard spirit, that believability. This is where you also see kids of NBA players and profoundly awesome all-star athletes. Their children have a tough time making it because they don't have that burning desire, that believability, because they come from a soft household. They got money. They are coming from, hard places, and they don't have to believe in themselves. They're kind of cruising. So that kind of feeds into that desire that burns you through any challenge and makes you work harder, more hours, better hours.
Yeah, that's interesting because, we've all heard the stories of all the athletes that have, had to battle through some stuff. The Jordan story obviously is probably the most famous. But I think it's interesting because one of the things that, we kind of think of these athletes, especially from a young age. In basketball, you got AAU now and all that stuff, that they all are just,
right.
Everyone is telling them how great they are all of the time, and just, the idea that they still need to have that confidence and belief in themselves. I mean, that's kind of surprising. I would think you'd have almost the opposite problem, that guys walk in thinking they should be the number one overall pick. You got 50 guys walking in like that. So you're saying it's actually the opposite. Some of these guys have some self-doubt, have some challenges with that.
Yeah. Like Omer this year, when he first came in, he's like, I'm going to play in the NBA. He was all chill with it. He goes, I don't need to say it in an exciting, positive way, because I said, well, listen to me say this. When you go, I'm going to play in the NBA, it was very kind of matter-of-factly. And I said, well, this is the way I want to hear it. I am an NBA player. I will be Rookie of the Year, in a very, almost aggressive, confident, believability. He couldn't even speak that way about himself. And the next day he came back. He says, I tried to practice that, but it didn't feel comfortable. I'm like, okay, didn't feel comfortable. Well, when he didn't get drafted, that was an eye-opener, and it gave him a chip on his shoulder. And he needed that. And it really pissed him off that Drew Carey from Duke, who he beat the crap out of when they played Georgetown and Duke, he's much better than the guy. Drew Carey gets drafted. Luka Garza out of Iowa gets drafted. And look what Omer did to Luka the other day. I think O had 12 rebounds, 7 points. Luka had 2 rebounds and like 4 points, And O was just snatching the rebounds left and right. He's super motivated. He took off about 40 pounds. He wasn't fat, but he just got so big. So you can't cover the pick and roll. You can't cover the stretch 5. But that reality of not getting drafted, he almost needed that, and made a big difference in him totally changing his mindset and where he had to be. And now he's on a great NBA squad.
That's good. And one thing I also want to ask you about is in the NFL world of things, you think of guys who have longevity, long careers. Obviously, the first person for me, at least, that comes to mind is like a Tom Brady, someone who's been around forever. And we've all heard of the TB12 method, his crazy anti-inflammatory based vegan diet, no weights really, a lot of stretching. He goes to bed every night at like 7 o'clock. This program that he has in place, these like super strict regulations he lives his life by, do you think these are really like beneficial for everybody, or is this more of like him in his older age is what he's had to confine himself to? What do you think about the TB12 method?
Well, if one were to know nothing about, the rules of living and, having a success in anything. I mean, if you look back, I wrote something like this when I was about 15 years old. And my father says, "You've done nothing but steal Benjamin Franklin's rules of life. Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Eat your vegetables, drink good water, get your exercise." So these are commonalities of physical, mental vibrancy and success. So if one knows nothing, it seems amazing. And Tom Brady has packaged it because kids and, citizens in general and other younger athletes and athletes in their prime will listen because, well, he's had success. So let me model and mirror his patterns of success. What did he do? And this is like, a whole pattern of success propagation is, well, who did the best? What did they do? Well, I'm not doing that. And here is a problem is, the NBA athlete, they have a couple kids, they got, their wife, they have other distractions, marketing stuff going on. And so to have a team around you that prepares the food the way it should be prepared on an anti-inflammatory basis is huge, like a support group versus some knucklehead friend that's like, "Man, I want to eat Popeyes again. All right, let's get it." How many guys I've had to get off of 3 junk food meals a day and just say, let's do 2 days and see how you feel of a vibrant, live, enzymatic activity from, fruits and vegetables as a foundation of your diet, low inflammatory. Let's get rid of the alcohol. Let's get rid of the weed. Let's get rid of anything that doesn't put you closer to your goal. And that's what Tom Brady does. Drinking great sources of proper pH water, getting your body tested, getting rest. I don't agree with his strength training. I don't think that's right to put that on every athlete. He's found the right thing for him as well as his diet. The Tennessee Titans, a couple seasons ago, they were on, I think the name of the movie was Forks Over Knives. It was about plant-based diet. And they had this whole movie and they showed the Tennessee Titans. That's when they beat my Ravens, and that was not happiness for us, but they seemed like they had energy to deal with Lamar. And you will see that. I mean, we do like test diets, and you look at a lot of athletes who can benefit from Tom Brady, and what are they doing? They wake up late and they don't eat or drink anything, and then it's lunchtime and they go to the cafeteria. Let's say a high school athlete who could benefit from the TB12. They go in there in the cafeteria, they get school lunch. So it's pizza, it's, refined sugars, they drink dairy and all those, some nutrients and calories, and you can gain value out of that for your energy, but it's not optimal. Versus you wake up and you have a huge glass of water with a fresh squeezed lemon in it, and that's already helping your blood pH and your hydration. Then you make a fruit smoothie that's, coconut water that you drill out of a young coconut, which is better than the stuff in the can you buy on the shelf. So it's fresh enzymatic activity. Then you put dates, figs, wheatgrass, all organically grown. So these are optimal nutrients that is better. You're drinking water throughout the morning. You have a mid-morning snack. Then you're eating a chicken breast, organic salad, a baked sweet potato. That's organic as well, because some of these organic foods have better nutritional content in them. Then you go for a stretch, and then you have your pre-workout smoothie in the afternoon, and then you train hard, a great post meal, a great midnight snack, versus a kid who's gone with no breakfast, school lunch, gets a roast beef sandwich and eats ice cream before bed, and they had 1 glass of water. So you see the difference?
Oh yeah.
So you can get better and better and better. And that's what these guys would pay people like me to do, is be around them. And what do I do in this case? What are you eating? I've got guys texting me all the time. I'm doing this and this and this. What do I do instead? So a lot of guys, you know, in the league, they're like, could be drinking. They can be staying out late. They're going to the clubs. They get a lot of money. And after 2 or 3 years, they don't have that Tom Brady discipline. So the takeaway from it is, well, listen to his program and see where you can get closer to where he is and how far away you are. You know, most people, they could buy his program and they will never, ever have the discipline. But if they listen to him and say, well, look where he is, and I really want this. How do you build that desire? Written goals, nightly recited goals, journaling, checking at night. What did I do today? Okay, I got up and I hit the vape pipe because I like to chill in the morning. Oh, that's really smart. You're going to school and you got to practice later, but you're vaping. You should never do that, right? That's something you did that puts you further away from your goal. Kids do this too. They're chill, they're in school, but they're either smoking weed, doing edibles, or hitting their jewel, and they think they're going to be a great athlete. Does Tom Brady do that? No. What did that do for you? Did it move you closer to that goal or further away? Okay. Well, the answer is clear on that one. So if they look at it, journalizing what I do every step of the day, how'd that help me? How was my hydration? What kind of water did I drink? Out of the tap, or did I get some, nice pH balanced water that helps with my whole blood chemistry? It's just a little, but if you're doing things that aren't good, when you project in the future, you're going down. But if you drink better water, eat cleaner proteins, get your rest properly, sleep in a fully darkened room, turn off that device at night because that blue light wakes you up, interrupts sleep. Well, in one day, just a little better, but over time, that's where you're heading, upward. So there's the merit to be drawn from his program. Is it magic? No, but most people don't know the things he's doing. So it is magic if you're just eating McDonald's, 5 times a week and training and consistent and staying up till 2 a.m. because you're texting with everybody and it's a bunch of bullshit. The time you grow is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So youngsters looking for steroids, they don't optimize their growth hormone, their natural test, because they don't go to bed for 4:10. They're doing homework, they're BSing around, they're goofing around, they're on their games, they're getting to homework at 10 o'clock at night, and they're still texting unfocused on that phone a lot. And Tom Brady won't be doing that garbage. He's not looking at the social media. He's focused on me to make a better we.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us, Nick. Do you want to ask our last question that we had?
Yeah, so, I'm sure you have a lot of certain techniques and methods that you've perfected over your decades in the industry. When you look around the entire industry that you work in, is there, one or two things that you wish everybody would implement? Like, is there something going on out there where you're like, this is totally bonkers? Why are people doing this?
First and foremost is that, people like in my industry and many industries do the least to just get by. And they don't know like really hard work, and they don't know overload. So in my industry, just in the strength component and the cardio, it's, being a perfectionist for the details and making sure that athletes hit overload. And after all these sessions with humans that I've had, 350,000 hours. Okay. I've done this when I was 7. My father said, write an article about what you want to do for work. So I said, okay, I'm going to be the boss because I like to make the rules and no one tells me what to do because I know what to do. And I'm going to have a gym right outside the office because I don't want to be fat like Mr. Spacely, who was George Jetson's boss, or, Fred Flintstone's boss, at Bedrock. And so I was like, I got to stay in shape and be, but little I know the gym would be the office, eh? So intensity is key. And people are, they got the weak face on. Oh, it's too much. Their belief system is bad about what strength will do for them. Even in NBA, they're really particular because the athletes are worried about their shots going to get thrown off, their touches off, because we're going to go super effing hard, man. And we're tough. We go hard. It's brief. It's severe, but we build up. We don't try to kill you on day one. And that's one of the big problems is people are able to hit overload. They don't know what that means. And I say, how do people get stronger? And they're like, lift weights. No, you must get to overload. And so that's what they miss. I don't wish they know all my secrets because I don't put on YouTube videos. You know why? Because I got magic. And when people come in and train with me, they know, man, that's different than there. I used to have my guys like Zoe used to come always and go, we're doing his first set. And we're doing something. He's like, shit, put the bar down. I go, what? And he goes, are you sure your weights aren't heavier in here? Every time I come in here, it's harder. I never, anywhere I train as hard as when I come in here. I'm like, well, that's because we train proper, you know? And that's the stimulus you need to accentuate versus an athlete coming in and they don't rule the roost with me. And like when Doug Collins wanted me to be at the Wizards when MJ came and he was there for the 2 seasons, I don't listen to, they have a guy, Steve Stricker, who was going to be there. They call him the trainer, but he's not the strength and conditioning coach, to tell me what to do. And I was like, there's no way you will tell me what to do. I run my house. Okay. And you know, that's kind of like the splitting point with me is if there's a coach who wants me, he's going to respect it. I'll give him the best bodies, the strongest, the fastest, the healthiest, most determined, change their mindset and work at optimal level. And I don't know how to coach the game. That's their job. I'll give you good clay to work with. So some of that's missed. Then the other thing they can do is come to my house and split wood for a few hours a week because that gives them these, they always go, I got the pause here. And I got, man, like LeVar Arrington, you got NFL. When I started training him, here's a funny story is he's like, I shook his hand. I go, oh, and he goes, I know I got weak little hands. I go, you're an NFL linebacker. You were at Penn State. Look at these hands. He goes, I know. I go, oh, we're going to strengthen those. He says, how? I said, you'll see tomorrow. So he lived out at off in Annapolis. And he had a 50-acre property. So I brought the axes. I said, come on, we'll go back in your woods. And we found a tree. And it was about 4 feet wide. It had no branches, about 80 feet tall. And it was just a rotten stump of a tree. All the branches were off. It was old. So come on, we'll cut this thing down. All right. So we start, and he's wearing Redskin gloves. And I'm sitting here with just bare hands, and I hit for a few hundred hits. He goes, and the outside was rotten. It fell away quick. It took us 7 hours to fell that tree, okay? He had his assistant Blue out there as a young guy just helping him. And after about, Bird, this is Bird. Bird's hitting after about 3 rounds. Bird's just, and here I whacked at this tree for hours. Finally, we felled the tree. LeVar had blood trickling out of his Redskin gloves, okay? And I had some blisters. I don't blister much, but I had blisters because we were working. I was like, okay, that was good. That thing came down with a thump because the inside was rock hard. So he leaves, you know, I go home, and he calls me from on the road. He goes, Kev. I go, what is it, LeVar? What's going on? He goes, I'm at a diner in New Jersey. We're going to see my wife's parents. I go, good. I'm in here, and I wonder, my hands are all bandaged. I said, uh-huh. And he says, you ever fell a tree before? It's the most unbelievable thing you ever did. I felled a tree today. You never chopped the tree down. But I tell you, over a few months, those hands thickened and they toughened. And so we split a lot of logs. And folks come over, they say, can I buy some of that firewood? You got a huge pile. I said, well, I don't really sell it because I had 8 NBA guys chopping it. They're paying $175 an hour a piece and cutting it for me. So it's kind of like the whitewash fence, but they're so excited to finish every day and split logs. So I'm getting paid a lot to get my wood cut. So you take some for free. I haven't figured out that equation yet.
That's awesome.
So it's fun times that they all talk about. And then we do a lot of work like in trampoline gyms. We go to these tramp gyms, and I'm gonna send you. I got Omer Yurtseven and Admiral Schofield. Admiral was at Tennessee. Now he's with Orlando Magic. He was with the Wizards. And Admiral's brother, is a cool story, is his dad was in the military, right? So they were in England. So O'Brien Schofield, you guys know who that was?
Mm-mm. I do know Admiral because Delaney's mom loves Tennessee.
Yeah. So O'Brien Schofield's the older brother. He won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
Admiral was at Tennessee. They made, I think, the Elite Eight. Then he's with the Wizards. Now he's with Orlando. So he's hoping to win a championship with the NBA. The younger brother's named General, and General is a high school baseball phenom out of Chicago. He's about to get drafted in his senior year here. So anyway, the dad is in the military, and he was in the car. Stories I heard, it was the mom's gonna have a baby. I think he might have been like in Okinawa, and the mom's like in England. I'm about to have the baby. What do we name? He says, Brian. So she heard O'Brien, but it might have been just Brian. Then when Admiral was born, he was in the car. There was Admiral Insurance or something. He goes, I got to name something military, Admiral. And then the third one, he just said, I got something different, military. All right, General, because he was in the Army. So he just wanted some military after he got O'Brien. Sounds like a good Irish kid. But they've all been here training with me, all three brothers. And there's a great, positive, super motivated family. So I'm going to send you a video of our trampoline flips and bounds and things we do for just creative body awareness and explosiveness without impact on a hard surface. So, you know, when you do this for this many years, your back of your mind is 24/7 figuring out how to solve things to amplify. And if you're, you know, if I write a goal down of what I want to do with an athlete, okay, the mind finds out how to do it. So, you know, one of the keys is having a teammate. Like, think about kids. This is a key thing for your program. Most of the time kids doubt themselves, but if you can find someone that's on your side and thinking about how to make you better 24/7, that's what's better about just a team trainer versus one guy on your side, is his mind is always like cooking on how can I make him better. And that athlete comes in who's just gifted genetically with all years of experience, your exercise knowledge, and you come up and create things that solve the challenges to get them to a higher level. So you get a team around you, you know, you got your skills coach, you got strength and conditioning coach, your mental training, nutritionist, everything like that. And you get a team, your chiropractor, your stretching expert. Think of it, you have a team of 4 or 5 people that's on your side, thinking about you getting better versus you wondering if you're doing the right thing and then doubting, you know, yourself and not having that time to lift up. I mean, many a time, you know, they come in and they're like, yeah, I couldn't have done it without you, you know, and that's what you do this for, is to get that. I couldn't have done this without you, because you found those pieces to put together. They don't know. They're young men, you know, they don't have these decades of knowledge to see what a Brady does and know what's good and take pieces away to get them better, you know?
Well, Uncle Kevin, we don't want to take too much of your time, and we can't thank you and Gracie enough for stopping by. This was such a great interview, and you had a lot of very, very valuable information. Nick, is there any final words you want to say?
No, really appreciate the time. Learned a lot. Always awesome to talk to the strength and conditioning coaches. You guys always have the best stories and the best insight. So thank you for your time. This was an awesome talk.
You're welcome, man. You guys have a great night.